Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Inspired Action Life podcast. I'm your host, Karen Baldridge, and we are back at it again, continuing this midlife series of experiences, lived experiences through the lens of my life as the example of what to do and, of course, what not to do, sharing that journey with you to make it more relatable and to have you understand that if you are going through similar things or if you've experienced similar things, first of all, you are not alone. You are not unique to that. It's pretty generalized, but sometimes it just comes wrapped up in very nuanced um, levels of pain and triumph based on our own life dynamics, and family things and all of the things that midlife brings to you. Whether it's, I want to be specific that, midlife can mean midlife career pivot. Like you are just sick to death of what you're doing and you want a whole new um, inspiring path, but you still have more to give, and you know that. It's just the thought of doing what you're doing right now for the next 20 years or whatever till retirement, whenever you retire, that makes you a little sick to your stomach. That's kind of where I was. Um, I just couldn't do it. So there had to be some like magical way. I couldn't see the way clear though, of course, because you get the golden handcuffs when you have a career and when you're making money, the family comes to rely a little bit on that. So now you're in a quandary, right? Because you have the golden handcuffs. So there's always that needs to be considered. And then once the family dynamics also in the area of relationships or family life, yeah, lots of dynamics change once your kids get older. And so there could be some rough waters in that time period as well, even though it's always heralded as, ooh, empty nest, this is going to be great, and all the things. Um, that is true, and it can be true. However, it comes with a whole new batch of potential stressors and um, emotional sometimes issues, not only with the separation of your kids, but let's face it, there's this whole new relationship identity and personal identity that now gets a light shown directly on it, like the spotlight is on that dynamic. And now you may or may not like all the flaws you're seeing in them. And it's like, is this an opportunity that I can fix them, or am I just going to survive it until it's all over? So these are some of the questions that you are faced with, not to mention the obvious absence of your kids. And while that sounds freeing, it can feel lonely and quiet. And if your entire home life identity and activities and things like that were wrapped around only what your kids were doing, you're in for a rude awakening. I know I was, because that was me. And I loved it. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't have changed any of that because I loved it. However, what I might have done is added a few more personal pursuits in there. So that's how I would have changed that. But nonetheless, it was always basically cosmically or divinely, I should say, written that it played out the exact way that it was going to, because everyone comes into this world with a whole lot of, some in the spiritual community would call it karma, other of us would call it more like life path or purpose and things that we had to learn to grow through by going through, you know, those type of things. And also when it comes to relationship dynamics, in your 50s or 40s, you're a totally different person than the 20 something version of yourself that got married and started this new path, right? You're a completely different person with a lot more lived experience. And so suddenly there has to be a reassessment and an adjustment in the energy of both of you and your partner or spouse, because you don't respond to life in the same way that you used to. And, the world and, pop culture will tend to blame that on hormones. And some of that is, I'm not saying that it doesn't play in it or make us have a quicker trigger, so to speak. But there is a wisdom to it, and there's just something, I can't explain it. But again, spiritual people, this is why I listen to all walks of information. My Christianity is the main guidance system, my North Star, but I have opened up to explanations because sometimes I have the personality and, quite frankly, the human design archetype that questions everything, like I discussed. And everything has to be explained to me, or else I can't accept it. You need to show me why it works or why this pattern, persists, or else it is just going to continue to happen and I'm going to continue to react and be miserable by it because why? I lack understanding. I lack context. I lack integration. I need to understand why these same patterns that have really grown to gnaw at my soul, why do they continue to happen? So with the relationship dynamic, there are things that you would probably overlooked, and just put yourself on the back burner because, hey, I got to get to practice, or I've got to help them get to this program they're going to, or we got to get all of their applications for college, or whatever it is. You get busy. I should, and nobody has the luxury. Well, we don't make the luxury of taking time to feel what life is going on. We just go through the checklist. And that's why it's very difficult, notoriously, when the emptiness sets in because emotionally you don't know who you are anymore because you've been the version of you that is just put up with the dynamics and just put up with those patterns and just, quietly rolled your eyes like, oh, that's just how they are. But what you will come to find out is those are micro tears in your heart, in your body, in your energetic field inside of you, your soul. Those are like death by 1,000 cuts, right? So it takes its toll because 1,000 cuts suddenly together become more of a gaping wound, but it goes unnoticed, kind of like the frog in the boiling pot of water. It becomes unnoticed until the water is a full rolling boil. And then that's when it gets your attention. And suddenly it becomes more of a immediate emergent type of situation where emotionally you feel freaking about to explode, but you've been putting up with it your whole life. And even before even a lot of times, and I'm not saying this is a partnership wound, this wound, I guarantee you, has existed far before your partner came into your life. This is like we talked about the last one, those patterns, those energy blueprints, those energetic patterns that are all part of your life purpose or your karma and things that you have to work through. Because there's all types of situations that we were born into and coping mechanisms that were needed in order to survive wherever it was you landed in your family unit, whether it was a big family, a small family, a broken family, a blended family, a single parent home family. If there was, traumatic things, big T or little t, traumatic things that happened within that time, all of that got stuffed away because many times, or at least in my generation, emotions weren't really front and center. We didn't have the type of life that let's talk about how you feel about it. And while I do applaud that right now because that would have been helpful to at least address emotions and learn a healthy way of processing them, you can go overboard on that as well because then you have to kind of, tap into your resiliency. But I think the laughing joke about Gen Xers is that we are resilient AF because we had to be because emotions were never ever on the table as discussion. You just had to roll with it. Like, you were lucky to have dinner on the table, or that, that they remembered to call you in for dinner, that type of thing. We were kind of feral. And it is funny to think about, and it really gave us all great coping and life skills. I mean, we're all pretty solid probably because of our coping and life skills, because we had to be. We had to be. That was what our life prompted us to be. We had to grow up quick. So in doing that, though, you have to manage your own emotions. You have to find coping mechanisms for when you feel hurt, when you feel slighted, when you feel ignored, when you feel not confident or validated, when you're never complimented, when you don't even know what you're good at because no one gives you feedback. When you just were left to your own devices to do homework, and if you didn't understand something, the only way that it was ever addressed is if school held you accountable. And sometimes that didn't even happen. They would just pass kids to do that. So there were lots of like areas in your life that you did not have mastery because no one held you accountable for it. And so you really had to kind of go with the flow of what interested you and what you energetically felt pulled to and all the things. Now, this is a 1,000 view, point of view, 1,000 feet in the air point of view, I should say. That is, I'm going to bring it down to the ground here. I'm going to land the plane, I promise you. But I'm just saying that was overall what a lot of our experience was in our, our midlifers and early, I don't know, what is the next generation, whatever, millennials and things like that. Because this is who raised us. Like, the boomer generation raised us. So anyway, that is a little context from what then you will come to discover takes place. Oh, this is so good. I don't even know where to start with this. It's so juicy. But when you now are faced with all of these weird heartaches that you can't even put words around, like you can't explain, why am I so irritated, or why am I just feeling so blue and so depressed? Oh, it's hormones. No, it's more than hormones. There's just something almost like ancestral about this, like something that's profound and deep, fundamental hurt, or just, you've been depersoned or something like that. Like no one's paying attention and no one has gone out of their way to meet your needs. And then suddenly it hits you. That's because that's true. No one had gone out of their way in many cases to meet your needs and to comfort you when you were scared, and to say, hey, why are you sad? Or to investigate when you were crying and your feelings were hurt, instead of, oh, get up, dust yourself off, put a little mud on it, you're fine. When the wound wasn't on the outside, the wound was on the inside, and nobody could see it, and you wouldn't even look at it because you didn't know how to. You were young and didn't know how to cope, but your body kept score. Your body always knew that death by 1,000 cuts, and now it's demanding to have your attention. So now here come these emotions that are profound, and suddenly you just can't tolerate the crap that you've been tolerating for the last 25 years or whatever, when you've been, involved, embroiled with family dynamics, your own family, as well as your larger family, siblings, and parents. And when you take time to sit down and assess, you will understand a couple things. Oh my God, there's so many things at play here. One of them is many times you took on other people's angst and their lack of confidence and their lack of happiness and their bitterness. You took it on and put it in your body as if it was yours, when in fact, many times it wasn't. You absorbed your mother's angst. You absorbed your mother's lack of confidence in themselves and how they ran their life and what decisions they made. You sat and quietly watched them as a child, and now you thought to yourself, oh, well, that's just how life is. So you will now recognize that you have some similar patterns to your mother when it comes to emotional items. And that may manifest itself as being avoidant in your emotions or anxious attachment, codependent, um, totally enmeshed. And there's all these buzzwords that I know in this day and age. Like I said, it's so great that these younger people are really more self aware and have names and labels to put on things that really explain some of your life patterns. Now, see, why does this matter? Well, let me tell you why it matters. Because every relationship, as you sit down and now take time that it's quiet to assess this weird unsettledness or this weird unhappiness when nothing even happened to you. No one was mean to you currently. No one did anything that hurt your feelings. It wasn't that. It's just, like I said, it's almost ancestral. Like it has been there for decades and you have just not recognized it or addressed it. And now, one way or another, it comes to the surface. And again, we can call that karmic cycles, life pattern, but I'm going to tell you the bad door things that we talked about in the last episode, where, hey, if you grow up Christian, where we tend to exile things like astrology and some of the other wisdom systems of Eastern wisdom. We tend to put those off to the side because, our North Star is Jesus, the Bible, and all of that. But I had come to a place where some of that information was finding its way into me, and what it did for me, human design, as we all know that one, but even to a certain degree, and again, I have not jumped in the pool, but at all, but I find out enough stuff to explain certain things for me that, again, for me to break a pattern, I need to recognize it. And for me to recognize it, I need to find a way to see what led into that pattern so that I can undo it. Because that's how my brain works. I'm super analytical. And especially when it comes to deeper things, emotions, I take nothing for face value. Nothing is as it seems in my world. But astrologically, there are a lot of things that would explain a path, a life path. So like I did an event where we talked a little bit about like personality assessments and human design and astrology and how they all layer on to each other. And so God for many Christians is the top barrier. I mean, not the barrier, but the top of the food chain there. For us, that's the North Star. That's who we look at. And then if you go below it, atmospherically, even planetarily, astrology is in there. And what that is, I've heard people term it this way, and it made sense to me, again, just from a, like an academic sort of way, because my mind thinks like that. It's very linear. I have to understand how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Astrologically, it puts the timeline, the when of your life, the when and the what of your life is answered through like your profiles in your astrology chart. Somebody termed it that way, and I was like, yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so when you listen to certain things, you see that, oh, I've got this chart or whatever. There is a when and a what about your life path. And once I that found its way into my psyche, and honestly, it came in around that same time that human design did, to be honest, in that same conversation, in that same mastermind with the same group of girls, just bigger picture thinking like, oh, it was just a fun night. We weren't doing it as a class. We were just like, oh, and what's yours? And what's yours? Just giving a quick overview, and it just literally took me in a chokehold. Like, what? And there's like destiny points on your chart. Like a north node is the life purpose that you are growing into, but you weren't born into it. It's a whole new skill set that you don't recognize, but that life will twist and turn you into circumstances that make you grow those parts of your soul, of your emotions that were very foreign to you because they were uncomfortable. Because all of us strive, first and foremost, to not be uncomfortable. We don't like to be uncomfortable. So for many of us, again, Gen Xers, feelings make us uncomfortable. Um, Opening, as I always call it, you'll hear me use this over and over, the bad door, opening up that bad door is very uncomfortable for me because behind the bad door are undealt with feelings. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere here, right? So now we're getting part of not only my own journey, but specifically, very specifically, how it played out and how likely it will resonate with all of you, especially if you're on this journey too. And so maybe I will be the breadcrumb telling you this that will open up a whole new stratosphere for you. So we'll see. If you're the one listening, this might be for you. North node, so that is, where you're heading to. The pivot point is right around your midlife. What they call like your Saturn return, your Chiron return, all these things that I'd never even heard of. And they sound so woo woo and mystical. And I get that. I totally get that. I never even embellished anything to do with that because it's like you're speaking a foreign language to me. However, that being said, once I understood what that puzzle piece was and how it fit into the energetic puzzle of my life, it all of a sudden freaking made sense. So like you'll go through these weird disruptions in certain pivotal points in your life. So 18, there's a big like stratosphere type of nodal return that happens in your astrological chart. Same with around 29 and 30. You're going to go into what is a very consequential time in your life where things are going to turn. You're no longer living the young life. You're now going into that midsection of your life where all the meat of the situation is really going to start to take shape. Who you become, who you are, where you are headed, what is your path. All that is going to start. And many times that's in a time period where people find their person, whether they get married or not. They kind of find consequential people in their life that really the people that we meet or our life situations are the catalyst that is beginning to brew to get us to that midpoint in our life when everything pivots and we have no choice but to head towards our north node, whether you know it's a thing or not. I did not, but daggone if I didn't look back at it. And it's like my freaking life was like a play on Broadway, and I was playing the main character role without even knowing that I was playing this role or that my life was a play. It was the wild, most mind-bending circumstance ever. Once I started to really hear what they were saying, look into it myself, because of course I'm an investigator. I needed to know how all of that fit together. I was like, what the hell? So like you understand then that your life, you can't stay in the comfort of your south node. So the south node, as described, well, not even perfectly described. This is my description of it, which is I'm a novice or enthusiast at best. That's it. It's kind of where you would grow into your coping mechanisms, what kind of emotional patterns you had to develop that you felt comfortable with, that made you feel safe and taken care of in the family dynamic that you were given. Now, here's where the rub is. Whatever comfort pattern that you developed from your mom, from your dad, from the family dynamics, without even knowing it, remember the big cosmic play on Broadway of your life, you will then, in theory, repeat those same comfort patterns when energetically choosing your person for life or your significant other, or if you choose to or don't feel pulled to get into a partnership, it'll show up in the dynamics of your career and how you operate, how you are triggered. What triggers you? What hurts your feelings? What makes you mad where you react? Where are you disappointed in yourself because you're not like standing up for yourself or speaking up for what you want when it was appropriate to do it? Again, I'm going to footnote that saying, now it seems like everybody speaks up, and many times it's not from a place of wisdom. I'm just saying it. I know that's controversial, but it is not. It's not wisdom, it's hurt feelings. It's unprocessed emotions from their childhood. So these are now going to be the triggers that they're carrying into adulthood, and what they're presenting as facts are not, in fact, facts. They are feelings. And I know that because I lived that myself. I had to go through that and come to that recognition myself. So, one of my favorite taglines that I hear from one of the programs that I was in, that I'm now highly utilizing and will be instituting the pillars of that in the program that I am creating, or the group that I'm creating, not even a program, but a group, and some of the things that we will talk about is this is so good. If it's hysterical, it's historical. Let me say that again. If it is hysterical, it's probably historical. Meaning that if somebody does something to you that triggers you off the handle internally, whether you show it or not, and triggers some bomb off on you where you feel like you want to go and, like friggin' go off on them, or all of a sudden you feel shame and embarrassment and you want to hide, you're horrified that they said this about you and that somebody on the outside saw like your deepest wound, whether it's your lack of confidence because you don't feel good in your appearance, because maybe you didn't get complimented, so therefore, you have this feeling of, oh, I need to hide and shame, and now I've been outed because somebody just made fun of my outfit or whatever that is, or I'm not smart enough. Oh, you think you're smarter than me? Oh, and I'm going to go off on you to prove, basically, what you will prove to them is that they are right. They are smarter than you because you haven't learned to control your emotions. Why? Because you haven't healed them yet. So it's one thing to control your tongue, and I thought I was doing good with the coaching part of it, right? I thought I was good because I had really done so much work in the mindset thing. Ah, but silly girl that I am, I had so much more to go. I had so much more work to do. And that was the stuff behind the bad door. The undealt with emotions, the death by 1,000 cuts, gaping wounds. I had to see myself for what I was. Now, as I learned this, as with everything, and as I talked about in my last 2 episodes, let's get out the old transparency again. Remember the overhead transparency, where we look at our life, we take this new information, and we lay it on top of our life and look back on the timeline retroactively. Ah, very illuminating, because the very things, when I could point to like 4 or 5 main, like, hurtful things that happened to me by other people, that's, and even to a certain degree in marriage, but there was even more micro versions of those, and they're unique to the marriage thing, but I'll get to that. But some of the, I could see the pattern throughout my life where I would get constantly thrown in situations where that very trigger would be set off to me in various situations all throughout my life. So if you look at the transparency, it's almost like there's that life path, that karmic journey, whatever you want to call it, your north node, south node access, trying to get my attention, the Holy Spirit going, you see this? Happened again. Do you see this? But see, if you're not paying attention, and if you are so busy blaming everyone around you, oh, the blame game is our favorite game. Oh, they're so mean. Oh, they're so jealous. Oh, they are so greedy. Oh, they are so selfish. And oh, horrible people. Uh-huh. Yep. And why do you think you got into that situation with them? Ah, yes. Nothing ever just happens. Nothing at all just happens, ever. There is a reason that you came upon that person in that unique situation and with that unique argument or terrible thing happening to you that really threw your life into a loop and caused more wounds. So the wound got bigger and deeper because you didn't recognize the pattern. And chances are you end up marrying or being in a very special partnership with somebody who will also trigger that very profound, deep, and painful self worth wound. There's going to be a self worth or that invisibility wound where you've always been invisible to the people that you really wanted some feedback from or really wanted to know, am I safe? Am I seen? Does anybody care what I think, what I want, where I'm at? Does anybody care? And if that was your wound, there's all kinds of different ones. But if that's one, I guarantee you that that shows up over and over and over again in your life as you look back on your transparency. Isn't that something? I want you to think about that for a second. That is information I could have used 20, maybe even 30 years ago. Would have been nice to know, but I didn't know. But what it does provide me now is perspective, freedom from being chained to it, and possible reclamation of those small prisons, where you want to call it, that you put yourself in, which stunts your growth and stunts the, obvious things that you want to pursue but could never do it because you had those wounds behind your bad door that you did not reclaim. So I loved the if it's hysterical, it's historical. So if something triggers you, not just irritates you, but triggers you where you're just like, ugh, you feel like going off on that person, that's a absolute gift from God himself, the universe, karma, whatever your way of understanding that is, saying, you got something you got to look at. What's behind your bad door? And it doesn't have to be a bad door. I just called it the bad door because I was afraid of feelings. I didn't like that type of feeling. I wanted to be connected with. So I really wanted that. And so I would go for people who I thought I was getting connection with, only to have the rug pulled out. Because why? Energetically, that was my pattern. I had to be with people who showed up one way, but then became this other person that would further carry on that wound that I had, up until I could then open the bad door, see the wound, face it, cry through it. In order to heal, you have to feel. And then you have to extract it literally from your body. So when people say the body keeps score, that is what they mean. Those old wounds, and there could maybe just be a few of them, but they inform who you are today, who you end up with, whether you consciously know it or not. Isn't that crazy? That's the kicker, right? So the bad door is really something that is the fast track, like the life hack. And it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out thing that you have to be in therapy for a million years. It may be a therapist that helps lead you to it. But this particular program that I was in is what did it for me. I didn't even go to a therapist. Their program and their hypnosis, which is like little t, trauma informed hypnosis, as well as EMDR. Have you heard of that? That programming and therapy, just so effective. They put it all together in this library of programs and all of these workshops. And oh my good Lord, it's like once you open that up, it's like the gushing waterfall, like Ancient of Days level of emotions start to surface. And it asks you to go back in your subconscious, since it's been in the driver's seat the whole time. Your subconscious has been driving your success quotient, your love quotient, your parenting success or lack of, your finances. Yep, finances. It's been driving it the entire time. And you didn't know it because you have not gone back to deal with it. And it doesn't help to blame other people. It doesn't help to blame your spouse. They were there simply playing the role of the villain for you so that you could eventually heal it. And that doesn't mean that their villain behaviors could be or should be excused. That's not it. But it does play a bigger role. There's always purpose in that pain, do you see? So that's why it matters that they played that role. But they can also have an awakening themselves and understand the role they played in your life so that they can spark off their own journey and grow with you, because their trajectory of growth is going to be different than yours. And sometimes people don't want to grow together, and that's what leads up to, the major percentages of divorce, because they don't want to acknowledge their partner's role in their pain, but they also don't want to grow with it. But I have a slightly different look where it's like, any of those triggers were actually probably meant to be there for my good. Now, that doesn't mean I want that continued behavior to continue. And then my choice becomes, are you going to grow with me and not only be aware, emotionally stable enough to not take it personally when I say, I don't like you to do this to me because it hurts my feelings. Are you going to find that irritating, or are you going to find that like, of course, because I value my connection? Because when you don't feel valued as a human your entire life, then that's going to be your core wound. We've all got them. You don't feel valued because you weren't made to feel valued in your younger life and growing up, and you always feel like, I'm not valuable. So what is the core wound? And really finding words for those core wounds, or maybe like 3 or 4 of them. And only then can you recognize and curate how you choose to be treated. And then like a chain reaction, will decide who you want to put in your surroundings, who you want to be in partnership or union with, or friends with, or in business relationships, or so on and so forth. Because if they are constantly going to trigger your core wounds, even if you've begun to heal them, it still is something that now you are choosing. No, I don't ever choose this again. I understand what it is. I am pushing you aside from a place of power, not from a reactive place anymore. You see? So it's a different energy completely. I'm not doing it because I'm scraping and clawing, hey, you're going to treat me good and I get all the same rights as you. I just fundamentally reject that attitude. I just reject it because it's very like unproductive for me, like in my lived experience, because now I have gone back and done the work. So I expect nothing. I learn from it. But then I also get to choose whether or not I choose to align with these people in any way, shape, or form. Right? So I'm doing it from a place of empowerment and happiness, and choosing my peace above all. And I make choices through that lens now. And that's why knowing those different transparencies has made a difference. And human design then helps me stay in that alignment of peace by making good choices because human design is learning your energy blueprint. That's what they call it. Learning your energetic blueprint. And that's how you learn it, is learn how your body makes decisions when, in fact, it is flowing and aligned, and you've removed all the gunk and dirt from the bad door, and now it's been the door of learning, not a bad door. It's the learning door. So that's how human design is wielded in my life. But it is so important to know the come up to why human design can work for you. But you really need to move and have a bigger understanding and a bigger picture, 1,000 feet in the air viewpoint of understanding how it all works together in order for this to move forward and to fall into line with the life that you actually have always wanted in this version of it, in this segment of your life. And so it doesn't have to be more of the same. It can be different, and it will be different, because energetically you're putting a whole new pattern in, right? You're putting a whole new energy blueprint. And so therefore you're going to align the things from your new energy instead of your old energy, which gave you more of the same. But your new one is going to attract a whole new life and a whole different dynamic of people and opportunities, and it is wild. So that's why I thought it's so important to, bite-sized pieces of this journey because it matters. And I want to help you by sharing my own story and how it all fits together. And that's what we're going to be doing in this new program that I'm going to be putting together, or this new community, which these will be topical meetings that we meet online to talk about the bite-sized chunks of the story, or how to wield the energy of your life and how to curate it and clean your energetic house up. Let's get it cleaned up so that you can be that bright version that you always see in your mind's eye, in your dreams. And I'm just here to tell you that it's not woo woo, it's real. It's real, it's the truth. I've got lots of stories I can share with you of people who have done it and are now living a successful life that they deem successful, right? So, all right. So that's my story for today. I will share more next week. I'm glad you stuck with me, and I hope you will be joining us coming in June with this program, because this is going to be unlike any other program that you've ever been offered, and it's going to be very low entry, obstacles of entry to get in, and it's going to be high vibe all the way, and your life will change. So, thank you, everyone. Have a great week.